What's it like when a funded startup takes a problem statement from their product, a real problem statement with real constraints, and shares it with designers from 10K designers to work on? In this video, we're going to be checking out a capstone project. This is almost like an industry project that was shared by a startup called Airtribe as part of cohort 7. The case studies that you're about to see are some of the submissions for this problem statement, and one of these, in fact, even ended up getting an internship to work with Airtribe in Bangalore. So sit back and let's check this out. Hey Bonnie, how are you doing?
Hi, Abhinav. I'm doing great. How about you?
Awesome, awesome. Bonnie, maybe we can start from here. Can you give us a little bit of context around just quickly what does Airtribe do? And after that, maybe we can talk about what were the capstone problem statements.
Sure. So I'll quickly introduce myself for those of you who don't know. I'm Boni. I've been working as a product designer at Airtribe for slightly over 2 years now. And what Airtribe does at Airtribe, we offer upskilling programs which are led by industry experts, also accompanied by an active learning community of like-minded individuals. So that's what we do on a very high level. And we also have an LMS system like the platform that the product that I work on, which facilitates the entire learning journey of a learner.
Yeah, folks, and to give you some context, Airtribe's LMS, which is their platform for cohort based courses, is what we use at 10K Designers on the backend. We've been using this ever since cohort 5, and yeah, couldn't be happier using it. So, Bonnie, can you tell us a little bit more about this problem statement? Like, what exactly was it?
So basically, the problem statement was to improve the video viewing experience on Airtribe in order to make consuming lengthy educational content easier. So, which sounds very straightforward, but I'll tell you how we came up with this problem statement for NK particularly. So, Airtribe is a cohort-based learning platform that facilitates these kind of courses, which are mostly reliant on live sessions, right? As we have seen, like most of our target audiences are working professionals and they tend to miss a few sessions every now and then because of their workload or whatever reasons, right? They have this ability to kind of go back and watch recordings of the sessions on their dashboard, which is the product that we work on. And also, if they want to quickly brush up on previously covered topics and for stuff like that. One thing that came out of our user research that it gets very difficult for somebody to sit through an entire video recording, which is most probably like an hour or so long, right? So they don't stay engaged throughout the video, and which eventually leads to drop off, people not getting motivated to sit through the entire video and not eventually completing the course. This was one of the problem statements that we gave. Yeah.
Got it. So we're reviewing right now Krithika's case study. So yeah, folks,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some context here. Now, when you're thinking about a platform like Airtribe, when you're designing for these kind of platforms, usually you have to think about supply side and the demand side, right? In this case, it's the learner side and the creator side. So me as the creator, the person running the course on Airtribe, I have a different view. I have a totally different experience to manage it. And then learners have a totally different experience for learning. So right up front, what I can see is Kritika started with a quick audit. So went through the screens to analyze the pros and cons. Okay. A quick tip for folks who are watching, like anywhere when you're doing redesigns, a good thing to probably start with would be a quick audit where you capture screenshots from the current experience. Like you want to be able to measure your future design against what already exists. As you can see here, Kritika's added a bunch of these sticky notes. My suggestion would also be, have it in your Figma file, all this stuff ready, so that in meetings, in design reviews, in interviews, you can quickly go in here and, without having to explain all of it at once, you can just show this image and you can just be like, hey, so I saw these things. Would you agree with these scenarios, Vani, which is people who miss their live classes, like their pain points and all of this?
Yeah, so I think I particularly like this section where she has segmented users into like different user groups. And she spoke about, people who missed their live classes and people who attended their live classes and their scenarios and pain points. And I do agree with some of these, but I also wanted to see more of the research. Like my first concern when I looked at it was, how did this pain points, where did this come from? So did you do a user research? Did you conduct some user interviews that that wasn't highlighted in the case study, and that was something I felt like was missing. But later on, we had a one-on-one call, and she clarified that she did do some user interviews, and that's how she came to these conclusions. Yeah.
Yeah, my guess is a lot of it comes from personal experience, but yes, would
Yeah.
probably be good to mention that the interviews as well.
Yeah.
I like these three use cases, which is people who missed, who did not miss, who attended it but want to revise, and number three,
Hmm.
who attended it but had to leave in between. Yeah, these are the three use cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one quick thing here, folks. Right, this is little bit more from the case study perspective. It's a short case study, right, in the sense that it's 4 minute read, which is not a bad thing, by the way. It's good if you're able to be crisp and still get your point across. However, after having gone through all of this stuff, I felt a little like it just kind of ended abruptly because I do want to see the final designs, but I'm going to have to watch the video to do it. So, Kritika, I think definitely would have been nice to see also the screenshots here. But
Yeah,
what are you going to
I
do?
do agree with that.
You know what? Maybe let's get Kritika on. Hey, Kritika.
Hi guys.
Kritika, what we're doing right now, we're currently at the Loom section of the case study. Can you tell me a little bit more about your solution? Once you did all this research, what were some of the explorations that you kind of did?
So I'll just start with how I picked up the problem statement. And so I picked up like a problem statement that I could really relate with, which was a video viewing experience, right? So I picked it up, and then like I was also added into a group where other couple of other folks were also trying to do a similar capstone project for Airtribe. So we all got into a call on Gmeet, and people were just like the pros and cons of Airtribe, and because we're all regular users, so I would say it was kind of unstructured user interview where it was more of personal experiences, what could be better, inspirations from like what they liked about other video streaming platforms. So I kind of like noted down a couple of them, and I also had like my own observations which got validated in the call. What I did was I kind of took a lot of time to just sketch it out. Like
Mm.
first try was like really bad, then I tried like inspirations from YouTube. My personal favorite is actually Skillshare, so I try to kind of like understand how they try to keep the content or the lessons or like the chapters like very crisp and short. And I also like validated these with a couple of folks from 10K. By the way, like these guys, like I couldn't have done the project without these guys, so special shout out to Siddharth and Sambhav and also Priya and also Grace. So they kind of gave me like timely feedbacks in every single sketch of mine. And quite honestly, I spent a lot of time in problem solving and not the UI part, because they had an already established design system. So once these sketches were done, started the UI directly.
So I'm just checking out now. Overall,
Yeah.
yes, I think definitely you should have included the screenshots, but no worries. For now, I was just going through the Loom. One thing that I really did like was that you've created this clear demarcation on the page, which is like dark, the purple thing on top, the light thing on bottom,
Yeah.
just to create these two areas, which is this is the video area and this is the information area. I found that we have quite a clean layout. Feel free to add anything.
Yeah, I think I absolutely love how she has redesigned this whole video viewing experience, as in this page particularly, like how you mentioned, the separation, the darker background for the video and the lighter one for the other stuff. And I think this is really great.
Yeah. I think the tabs are a good idea as well, which is, folks, if
Hmm.
you notice here, what was the difference before, right? Outside of this, what we just talked about. Currently, the pattern that Airtribe was using or is using is this. This pattern, right? The problem with this is you've got a lot of sections, but they're linear. So the one at the bottom is the hardest to discover, which means the sections at the top get most of the action, right? One way Kritika has solved that is kind of made it tabs where at a glance it's easy to see what all is included and navigation becomes much easier. Kritika, the first question I want to ask is what was your design experience like before this? Like, is this one of the first couple of projects, or you've done a bunch of stuff before?
Quite honestly, this was not my first project. Like, I've created like products like from zero to one as well. Like, I was one of the first designers in another edtech company.
Mm.
So I've quite had like a lot of learnings over there, and I've created a couple of case studies on my own. I purposefully wanted to keep this case study short because I myself, when I go through different designers case study, it's quite too long. And I really liked the part where Abhinav, like, you asked us to explain our case study, like record our case study in Loom and send it within like 2 to 3 minutes. So I really like that compact format. Though, like, yeah, now that I look back, I think I should have added more screenshots to explain each and every detail. I think I missed out on that. But yeah, that's a good feedback. I think I should add more on that. So yeah,
I love that. I
but
love you took this approach. And I think given the fact
yeah,
that you've designed for EdTech before, this is a really good selection for your portfolio. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
So, Bonnie, number two, we're also going to look at the same problem statement, which is solving the video viewing experience. But this one is by Shrayana.
So one thing that I really like about this case study, when you like start off, that she tries to kind of make you relate with the problem statement. She tries to frame a relatable story around it, which I think really kind of keeps you hooked, like you're keen on picking up a new skill and blah blah blah. And then there is the problem that the real challenge isn't the lack of information, but the skill of effective consumption. So this is something that stood out for me in the case study right from the beginning. Okay, one more thing, that is like the problem statement that is being mentioned here: optimize the video viewing experience on Airtribe to make easier content discoverability and engagement for learners. So this wasn't the initial problem statement, but Shana, she went ahead and did research and realized, okay, these are the more pressing concerns around video viewing experience, and she decided to tweak it a bit, which I did like. She kind of went ahead and did the research and realized, okay, these are some of the more concerning things, and I think I should solve for content discoverability. So that was nice, I feel.
You know what, Shrayana, maybe we'll get you on. Hey, Shrayana, how are you doing?
Hi Abhinav. Hi Bonnie.
Shrayana, you want to just talk to us about, the thing that Bonnie just said, the statement. How did you discover what exactly the problem was?
Yeah, so in my research process, I started off with getting a whole survey done and sending it to 10K folks in the group. And then I got onto the Zoom call and we got a lot of inputs. And also, I went on through the voice channels in Discord to get insights. And then, after jotting down all the problems, I segregated them onto different sections. I mean, I literally categorized them, and from there I prioritize these three are the different problems that people are facing, and then I redid the problem statement all at once.
What was your research experience like? Because I think the advantage with this, with picking this capstone, was the users are so easily available. Like you've got your own people you can talk to. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was it was actually pretty convenient, and it was very easy to get data. But then later on we had a call with Bonnie, and she said ki there are also more people who use Airtribe as their platforms. So maybe overall there could be a little bit of bias, but I tried to make it more generalized.
Yeah, I think Bonnie, this comes to your earlier point, which is as users, yes, we do have our own experience, but it's nice to validate that wherever possible.
Yeah, true.
Let me answer a quick question that some people do have around this, which is this kind of stuff, right? Like, I think a lot of people who are like beginners, overall, the idea is before you solve a problem, you need to figure out what's the problem you're solving. That's the clear thing here. That's the clear difference here, right? So, typically, most case studies you will see the reason they start with this kind of stuff is it's not always obvious, which is make a music app, make a learning app, or just do this. A lot of times it's about, okay, this app exists, like Airtribe here exists. It works a certain way. It has certain problems. Now I can change a lot of things, but then the time I have is only like 7 days, 14 days. How do I prioritize? Like, how do I come up with what's higher priority? I need to validate this with people. Pretty much before you jump in, try to figure this out before, because it is common that delays usually in the design process happen when you start solving something, you finish it, and then you realize, wait, that didn't address the problem. Like I solved it, but I solved like a small part of it rather than the part that everybody was saying, please solve. Nice. I like the annotations approach.
When I looked at it for the first time, I felt like, okay, these are in different colors. So does this mean anything? Okay, does green mean something? Does red mean something? The annotations. So I was a bit confused. So I thought maybe there must be some legend or something. But then I read through it and I realized, okay, these are just, it's just for fun using different colors and stuff. So maybe that is one thing. that at first I got a little confused, but yeah.
Yep. Right. I want to
But
actually
very
jump.
nicely done analysis of the existing dashboard. I think this was very extensively done, and I very much appreciate it.
Bonnie, you work, closely with the founders of Airtribe. What is it? Do you have any insight on what is it like as a founder when they see something like this, like their platform broken down and put in this way for them to analyze as well? Because they know the platform, but it's still useful to see it broken down like this.
Yeah, I think our founders specifically have a very strong product background. So they always appreciate if somebody comes up with new ideas or say, things like you guys could do this in a better way or stuff like that. Just have a healthy discussion on, okay, this person came up with this idea. What do you think? And I think it's always been very healthy and not like, feeling bad about it that somebody has broken down the whole
Of
product and
course.
kind
Yeah.
of is trying to nitpick issues and stuff, but it's
Mhm.
always been, I think, the other way around.
Bonnie just brought up a great point, which is it okay if you can just make a case study and just say, hey, I found something wrong, I solved it, and here we go? Like, is that a weird thing? It's not, because most founders do appreciate structured thinking when it comes to stuff like this. So, Bonnie, you want to talk about some of these features that she's designed? Keyword feature, discovering pending tasks,
Okay.
like all of that stuff.
Yeah, the keyword thing, right? I think she introduced one which is like a search feature. And we had a one-on-one call, and then she had placed it in a different place, and we kind of brainstormed in the same call, and she decided to put it on a more noticeable and expected position, the search bar. And also the keywords on the cards, right? I really like the small, tiny attention to detail sort of thing. Like, it can get a little overwhelming on the card because there's just too many information on the card, right? There is session timing, there's XP, there is pay resources and notes and stuff like that. But she has added the small enable and disable, so like show keywords toggle, which if you want to, you can see. If you don't want to, you can just hide them. Also, this discovering pending task section, wherein she handled multiple states. That is something very important as designers. When we work on personal projects before joining a company, we just work on the default or, the ideal flows, right? But when you work on projects, you have to also think about multiple states, like empty states. Let's say if there are multiple pending videos, how do you go about showing them? If there is like an incomplete task, how do you show that? So
Mhm.
that was also handled quite nicely here.
I think one of the challenges with deprioritizing, while I like the feature, my observation, I've usually seen people get confused. They're like, "Acha, abhi to tha, but ab kahan chala gaya?" Like, it's usually that's what I've observed. Yeah, which is that's what I would think twice about, something like that. The way I would like to explain it to you guys, it's kind of like object permanence, right? Which is, in your house, if you leave something somewhere, it's going to be there. But if it's not there, usually something has happened. There's some reason why. And if you don't know the reason why, it causes confusion. Like, where did this go? It's a good idea to try to maintain that object permanence, like, try to keep it in a similar place. Because if users don't know what the rule was, like, let's say it was distractive, is the rule you're applying here, people can get confused about that. Anyways, so just a small note there. Shrayana, talk to me about the note taking experience. Like, what was the insight behind this? And, if you could just explain this a bit.
Yes, even when we were in a Zoom meeting with all the 10K folks who were doing the same problem statement, we discussed about note taking, and one of them were mentioning that sometimes there are cases where when the Zoom call is happening, they miss to take the notes and then they go back to the video, switch it on, and take notes. Even when I was doing the competitor analysis of Coursera, Udemy, so they have note taking features that they have recently implemented, and there are features where they can save the notes, post it publicly. So from there, I came across this decision.
Because what comes to my mind is, yes, I have seen that in Coursera as well, but I've never used it. Because every time I would see it, I would be like, why would I give you my notes? I would keep it my Apple Notes, right? That's what came to mind when I was going through.
Yeah, I think that's something that we have had multiple discussions on at Airtribe about note-taking feature, but we never came up, we never decided to prioritize it because we always have this kind of pushback that people have their own personal note-taking sort of places or tools or apps. Let's say I have my personal Notion doc where I just dump in all my stuff like resources or anything. Other people would have the same. So we were not sure even if we introduce something like that, what would be the utility of that?
And it's tricky because I can see the other side of the argument as well, which is, if more people were to add their notes here, maybe it benefits the collective to see it together, but then it's not always guaranteed. And not everybody will contribute their notes here.
True.
A quick note to folks, right? Now, this typically is how an interview goes as well, right? Usually, rounds with designers are portfolio reviews. I think some people kind of get scared about situations like this because they're like, what if I don't have the answer? What if I cannot give a solid UX, like the principle behind it? But I think what's more important is you're able to have a conversation about your design. That's core. Because I can tell you, even when you're working with a team as a designer, there will be situations where you design something and you get pushback. Devs say, no, we can't do this. Or the product managers say, I don't know, something else. And then you realize that, okay, wait, like, yes, there is this constraint we're trying to work with. Like, that's normal. It's not a bug. That's just how things happen. And so the way to resolve those things and to actually, collaboratively figure out what's the best way forward, conversation, discussions, whiteboarding, that's how it happens. So that's what they're trying to simulate in the interview experience when faced with a question mark. So what about this? Does the other person freeze, lock up, or like are they defensive? Do they immediately start saying no, 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 like no, but I did that, or are they like, okay, wait, I understand what you said. Follow back question, like actually understand first, then say okay based on that, and then just have the conversation. All right, coming to the end of this. So Bonnie, overall, what are your final notes on this case study?
Yeah, I think the research is something that I've already told Shrayana that it's very extensive, and I really like how she broke down certain screens and did the analysis. But also when it comes to UI, she has followed the guidelines very true to its, how it's supposed to be. Like we had already provided some color styles and text styles, and that has been followed very properly here. So I really like that. It's always, I think, rewarding to see people working on your design and dissecting them and putting together pieces and then coming up with new ones, which is always, I think, appreciated. But yeah, I think this is a great project.
Shrayana, I want to just for the viewers who might not fully know, can you tell us a little bit about what was like your level of experience with design and what was it like working on a real problem statement like this?
So this was actually one of the first. This was first we did the landing page, after that the app assignment, and this was the third experience. But before that, I am from an architecture, urban design, planning background, so I had pretty much a little bit of idea of what to expect from this whole field. So could say that this was one of the real life project which was first thing for me.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And thanks, Shrayana, for working on this problem statement and sharing it with us tonight. Bonnie, are we ready for number 3?
Yes, let's go.
So this is a totally different problem statement, not the first one. Can you tell us a little bit about what was the intention behind this one?
So when we were coming up with these problem statements for 10K folks, we also realized that because 10K folks have been extensively using our dashboard throughout the cohort, why not give them an opportunity to come up with an idea that they have been thinking about or a problem that they'd like to solve. So we just asked them to draft a one-pager regarding a problem they'd like to solve or a feature they'd like to implement on Airtribe in order to enhance overall learning experience on Airtribe.
So folks who've not used Airtribe, you might find these problem statements a little bit not relatable. But overall, let me share this. For the cohort-based course, a lot of communication happens typically on Discord. But then this is where all the session replays and assignment briefs and all of this stuff is located. And the connection between these two isn't like almost non-existent, right? Like the person needs to have both these tabs open, the learner.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they do certain things here and certain things there. So there is a groups feature in Airtribe, which is for groups of people who are working on the same assignment together. Each month there is one simulator. And now the simple word for that is just, it's a project. It's an assignment. For this assignment, you put into a pod. For every project, a simulation is created, which has other teammates. So like maybe about 6-7 other people from the cohort, as well as 2 mentors with really good experience. For this project, it creates the simulation of what it's like to work in a design studio or work in a startup. The problem statements are also kind of related to that, where this is usually the landing page, the website assignment. This one is usually the app assignment. Capstone, this is what we're reviewing right now, the Airtribe capstone. But that's a little background behind it. So these pods, right, which is the unit of collaboration, you could say. These pods are created in Airtribe. And, on the learner side, you kind of see for each assignment who the pod members are. I liked this, which is just including the screenshot of your different user interviews. Now it's a really small thing,
Yeah.
but
I think I absolutely love it. Like, she showed some glimpses of the user interview that she had done. And I also highlighted it in the feedback that I had sent her. One thing that is maybe kind of subjective to me, but is that, when I was going through these case studies, I wanted to see some of the questions that they had asked because I wanted to understand the scope of the research. It's very important how you frame a question, right? You don't want to end up feeding what you exactly want to hear to the users. So I was looking for the type of questions they were asking. Are they correctly framing it or not? And what kind of insights they were drawing out of it. So that was something I wanted to see. But even if you don't want to include it in the case study because it makes it super lengthy, you can just maybe add a link to it so that whoever is interested can just go ahead and check it out. I wanted to see the questions, but I didn't have the questions here. So yeah.
some other platforms. Yeah. Can't really see too much here. So it kind of defeats the purpose. But again, this is where that it's a subjective thing, right? You can include all of this in your case study, but then it really increases the length, right? People are like, oh man, get to the designs. But I like this though. Here's the insights for me. So in some ways, Grace has saved me that time here. But if I do want to go in, yeah, I would probably ask you, hey, let's open this Fig Jam. Hey Grace, how you doing?
Hi, Grace.
Hi. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Abhinav.
So, Grace, talk to me a little bit about after the research, which is after the research, you now know, okay, my experience, I know their experience, and I know roughly what the gaps are. What was the approach after that?
So after that, it's really necessary to sit down and document what your findings are definitely different from what insights are. So I did that. There are so many thoughts going on. I can do this, I can do that, I can have this, I can have that. What I did was I noted all of them down and then I used Moscow framework, which was taught in our cohort. And that really helped me a lot. I connected with Bonnie. I asked her a question, okay, is this something you want me to know, that what are your limitations, what is technically feasible or not?
Trying to improve an existing product, you need to ask a lot of questions because there's a lot happening in the background, right? We took some product decisions and decided to not take that call. So that's why, like, I loved how she was constantly keeping in touch with me and asking me several questions to get more clarity on the problem space.
One highlight here, okay, I really like this. One of the first things Grace suggested was not really a huge design change or something, but it's more of an information architecture change. How do you even reach this page, right? So, information architecture typically has a lot to do with navigation. As part of navigation, Tribe was a separate tab here, and Projects was a separate tab. One of the things Grace realized while doing this is Tribe is related to projects. Another note she made was that tribe is a confusing word because we actually don't use that anywhere. She's moved it under projects because for every project there's a new group. And second, she's changed the term for it. But that's a lot of what information architecture is about. Labels, navigation, and thinking about, these kind of flows.
Yeah, one I think small feedback that I gave to Grace was she has added like a navigation, like a sort of secondary navigation inside this page, like group discussion. There are tabs basically: group discussion, Q&A, resources, meetings, messages, and members. So, what was the reason or what was the thought process behind this sequence in particular? So, why group discussion is at the first? Like by default, that is what opens up, right? When you click on my groups, and then why is Q&A the next one, why is resources the other one? So that was something that I wanted to learn more, the sequence, about the sequence, what was the reason. And I think, yeah, that could have been included.
Any final thoughts, Bonnie?
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to highlight is I like how she tried to, use the existing XP system in order to incentivize more discussions or more engagement. So that was something that I really liked about this. So she has used an existing thing and used it to leverage it to, drive more discussions in the group section. But overall, like UI, from a UI point of view, I think this levels that it could be visually represented in a better way, I feel. So maybe, redesigning this and showing it in an actual level sort of design would be nice. And again, chat is something that I already mentioned. So, but yeah, I think a really nicely put together case study, Grace. I'm reading through it.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah, agree. I have a question for you, Grace, which is, can you tell me a little bit about what was your experience like with design before having done this? And like, was this one of your first few projects?
Okay, so I have done few courses on Coursera and I have made some of my personal project, but this experience was different because here you are dealing with a company. You have to communicate a lot because sometimes you think, okay, this feature is really important. You could have this. But when you talk with the product designer, the developers, those tend to change. You realize, okay, these are the limitations which will not work. These are the things that will work. And secondly, when I was creating my own projects, I had all the UI, colors, typography in my hand. But when you work with a company, it is really important to have their own brand identity reflected in your work too.
A quick question around that. That's an interesting point, which is the projects before this, they were, let's say they were not for, it's not Airtribe, they were conceptual projects. You have to come up with brand, you have to come up with the style guide, you have to come up with the design system. Here, you have the brand guideline and you have the design system. So for this project, Grace, my question is having that UI part kind of sorted, did it make it easier to be like, okay, now I can go fully into the UX? Or what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was kind of sorted. Like main thing that I worked around in this project was UX, but when it came to UI, I had to follow their guidelines too. Like Bonnie, she told us clearly you have to use a 8-point system, and when she says that it's necessary, you have to use it because a slight measurement that will change the whole look of the website. So both things are really important. With UX, you have freedom. Okay, you can think, I can do this, I can do that, but with UI, like I discussed with Bonnie also, and I got this feedback also that it looks clean because it's very necessary to have those colors included. Because I remember they shared their UI kit with us, and there were lots of colors. Even for small details, what kind of shadow you have to use, what would be the state if a meeting is cancelled, what would be the color used. And when you work with these kind of project, you learn a lot. Okay, those are the small things you have to understand. This does not come on personal projects.
Nice. Awesome, Grace. Thanks a lot for sharing this. And yeah, loved the case study. Keep it up.
Thank you, guys.
It seems like the process runs the designer when you read a lot of case studies, especially when it's clear it's templatized. But the reality is, if a process runs the designer, you're always kind of beholden to the process, because in real life is not as perfect as a process is. Real life is messy, complicated, a lot of people, you have to figure stuff out. So rather than the process running the designer should run the process, right? Which means not being so fixed on, I need to do this, or I saw people include XYZ, so I should do XYZ. You run the process to drive towards an outcome. And so, yeah, that's an actionable tip for all of you there. And feedback as well. I think for newbie designers, my quick tip around this is that feedback is a gift. And it is a gift because somebody's taking the time out of their day to actually give it to you. And again, you can't get feedback from anyone, right? You need feedback from people who are like, who you want feedback from, who have been through similar situations in the past. So always be open to feedback, integrate it into your work, as Bonnie said, because that makes other people want to give you even more. You don't have to implement everything they say. You can just say, thank you, feedback taken, and figure it out later whether you really want to do it or not. But yeah, that's a quick tip for you all. Thanks a lot, Bonnie. Amazing session. I really enjoyed going through all of these.
Thank you so much for having me, Abhinav.